The Bucs, before the season started, had him right here. No risk it, no biscuit coach with a dink and dunk quarterback. Of course there's going to be some tension in terms of how they're going to do it. It's going to morph over time into more of Tom Brady's offense. But Tom Brady not with Bill Belichick anymore. Now he sees not how the other half lives, how everyone who ever lived except for him lives. He doesn't have no one's perfect, but Belichick makes fewer mistakes than anyone else. He lets the other team beat themselves, right? So he doesn't have that anymore. He's with a coach who's human. He makes mistakes. He's good. I think Bruce Arians is a solid NFL coach. I think he's a good coach. You know, he's not Bill Belichick. So now Brady is dealing with that. Guys, as I said yesterday, the over-under for wins for the Bucs coming into the season was 9.5. I like the over. I like them to win 10 games. Everyone's like, oh, they're going to win 12, 13 games. Brady's so great. No. Brady is, as his QBR shows, he's an average quarterback, which is amazing at his age. And I would say he's a little over average. It's Tom Brady. I agree with that. But like middle of the pack. High middle, maybe, even though the stats say maybe low middle. But that's what he is. And he's got weapons everywhere, but it's not a perfect fit. And he's learning the system, and he's doing it at a time when he's 43 years old. So if you like them for 10 wins, right now they're 7-5, guys. They're going to win 3 of their last 4 games, right? Something like that. They're going to be 10 or whatever. They're going to be 10-6 at the end of the season. That's what they were supposed to be. So for all the, even Bruce Arians is like, hey, it's a work in progress. Brady's doing fine. He's calling the plays. We're figuring it out. He's getting better. This is what they are. This is what you thought they'd be before the season started.
Well, first of all, I had them going 11-5 this season. I had them losing the division to the Saints, which was probably at 12-4, if I remember correctly. That's what my thought process was. But I'm going to sit up there and look at Arians. I'm not absolving Brady. I'm just looking at Arians just as significantly, if not even more. We have periodically pointed to this, things they've done schematically. We've had a problem with it. Yeah, no risk it, no biscuit, but you have Tom Brady. You got to meet him somewhere in the middle. And if dinking and dunking is the way to go, and that's what rode him the 6 Super Bowl titles and 9 Super Bowl appearances, and you're Bruce Arians, if you never had one on your resume as a head football coach, it might behoove you to listen to this dude and kind of do what he wants to do, particularly when you have the requisite weapons available to you. And that's what I'm thinking. I'm also thinking about the fact that you got a defense that's ranked number 1 against the rush, but number 24 against the pass. And I'm looking at what you did to that good dude, Carlton Davis. We don't know if Carlton Davis will ever recover from that beat down. I mean, it's rare that you see a cornerback not only alone on an island, but left alone on an island to be so thoroughly embarrassed the way that he was by Tyreek Hill. 1 minute you sitting up there and you backpedaling before you catch touchdown passes. Another minute you backflipping into the end zone and posing on the opposing team's turf. All in the first quarter with 200-plus receiving yards. In the first quarter, it was just embarrassing. They had the camera on Carlton Davis. You see his head down. I don't even remember what he looks like because he had his head buried so low for so long on Sunday afternoon. And then let's get into Antonio Brown. I'm sorry, I know that he's not been around that much longer, that long rather. But this is Antonio Brown we're talking about here. You tell me on what day in the illustrious on-field football career of Antonio Brown where he's been targeted 3 times and catch 2 passes for 11 yards. You trying to tell me you don't know to get that man the ball? I love Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's no joke. Gronkowski is a reliable weapon. Scott Miller is all right. We get all of that. This is Antonio Brown. Now, we can say what we want about the headache he might be off the field based on some of the problems that he caused. But there is no question that on the field, we're talking about a Hall of Famer, one of the elite receivers this game has ever seen. 2 receptions for 11 yards, 3 targets against the Kansas City Chiefs. What the hell is going on here? You're damn right I'm looking at Bruce Arians, not just Tom Brady. I'm looking at Bruce Arians.
No, I just don't. I think it'll be too hot. I really do. I think it'll be too hot.
Even though, Sal,
it's the way it's happened, though, Keith.
The Super Bowl was just 3 years ago. And you know how this thing is. You've been in this league longer than me and Jay been alive combined. That coaches don't usually get put on a hot seat 3 years removed from winning a Super Bowl.
That's true. And plus, he was only one of 4 coaches to make the playoffs 3 straight years. The others being Belichick with Brady, Sean Payton with Drew Brees, Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes II, Doug Peterson with the revolving door at quarterback. So, yes, he's done it. There's no question. But I'm telling you, the feel in the town is going to be tough for him to overcome 3 wins. It really is, because when you look at it, the problems up and down on the field and in the lineup and the execution and the plan has not been a good look for the head coach and the coaching staff.
Wow.
So, I mean, and listen, Lurie hung on to Andy Reid for 14 years when it had gone bad, and he held on to him for 3 or 4 years beyond when most people thought it was time to move on. So I'm not saying that he's going to be let go. I'm just saying, you asked me, is it going to get hot? I'm going to say to you, Key, it's going to get very, very, very hot.
Well, they'll be able to cook some cheesesteaks, that's for sure.
Steamy hot.
Indeed. Geno's, Pats, Tony Luke's, the whole dang, as Sal well knows. Go ahead, Sal.
No, they're happy in South Philly because they had 6 in the hook, man. Come on now.
Those guys in the desert, they don't call them sharps for no reason, that's for sure. I will say to Sal real quick on the way out the door, Jeffrey Lurie was a Hollywood movie producer before he bought the Eagles, and there is no Hollywood ending coming this season. That certainly seems to be the case. Sal, we'll see you over the weekend on the Matchup Show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Great to have Sal Pal with us.
He's the best. 6 in a hook. He knows it so well.
No question
Story of my
about
life
it.
last night.
It's amazing how they continue to do it
I'm
day
worried
after
about
day.
you.
I'm
night
worried about
after
me
night.
too.
The first step to admitting you have a problem is admitting you have a problem. Okay.
Yes, on national radio. Yes.
We'll talk gambling later in the week. Just for those of you that weren't aware last night, because it is always coming down to Wentz and Hurts before we talk about the Seahawks here in 1 minute. Hurts was on the field for 2 snaps. He threw a 6-yard pass to Alshon Jeffrey. On that particular pass, Carson Wentz was split wide out. He also did come into the game to hand the ball off one. So that's essentially what Jalen Hurts was able to do last night. Let's talk a little bit about DK Metcalf. You mentioned it. Sal mentioned it. Key. He was known initially as a workout warrior, the guy with like the 2% body fat. Can anybody actually look that like an Adonis? He actually was able to do it. But think about this. 177 last night. Best game of the season so far. You could argue it was the best game for a Seattle receiver in the history of Monday Night Football. His best game his rookie year, the playoff game against Philly. So he's got something going on against Philly. To reiterate what Sal said, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside drafted 57th overall over Stanford, right?
I didn't like him. You know,
12
obviously,
catches,
I
inactive,
saw him.
COVID list.
I saw him out west a lot. It wasn't, no, not a chance.
Last pick of the second round, DK Metcalf. Third round pick of the Seahawks, Russell Wilson. If the Eagles are struggling, Howie Roseman, the executive vice president, is struggling. John Schneider, his opposite number in Seattle, they're hitting all the time.
Well, it's, you know, sometimes you evaluate, you over-evaluate. And when you don't have enough information about a guy, even though you think that your scout in that particular area is giving you that information, he's scouting wrong. And when you're looking at whoever scouts for Philly in the SEC Ole Miss region, they obviously didn't really break it down the way that it need to be broken down versus the person on the West Coast who scouted and sold his guy. Now he's got to live with that. The way it works in different in the NBA. There's all these regional scouts, and when they go in that room, they're fighting for their guy. They're fighting for the guy. And you would say collectively, as a group, shouldn't they just be fighting for the team? Don't really work like that, because if I'm a West Coast scout,
Fighting for your job too.
I'm fighting for my job. So I'm like the dude out west. I like him. He's the guy. I'm telling you. Look at what he's done. Look at the comparisons. Da 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 da. And the other guy that said Ole Miss, his case is not as strong, and he has a neck issue. So it's kind of like he's got some medical issues. You know, a couple teams passed on him twice, all of those sort of things. Pete Carroll says he's sitting there at the bottom of the second round. We can afford to do this. If it doesn't work out, oh, well, it doesn't work out.
2 stories, Key. A couple years ago, watching the draft, watching it actually on radio, Mina Kimes, I remember this, when they drafted, well, it's simulcast, Key. He's like, you can't watch on radio. It's simulcast like our show. Anyway, back to my original point. Watching Mina Kimes when they drafted DK Metcalf, she literally did like a Tiger Woods fist bump. Like, it was like, she was so stoked. And I remember going back and watching highlights of him, like, damn, this dude is different. And then I remember them paneling to him on the draft. And Zubin, it's the line that he said again last night. Should have never passed.
You want to hear it?
Well, you
Should have never passed.
You want to hear from him?
That was a T-shirt he wore on draft night to all the teams that passed him.
But here's what I'll say before we hear that.
Sure.
A guy like that's that big and runs that fast, I'm gonna find a place for him somewhere. If I draft him, he becomes a special team warrior on a gunner position. It's not gonna be a wasted draft pick.
No doubt.
Did he run the 40 in a 4.57 like Key?
If you think I ran a 457, little guard that you are, that's why Carlos Boozer was better at Duke. Let me hear that sound, man.
Indeed. Here's DK Metcalf essentially saying, you passed on me, and I passed by you all night long last night in the secondary.
I think we're just at the right time, right place.